The invention of photography in the 1820s enabled society to capture snapshots in time, whether it's as simple as a day spent with friends, a celebration, or even someone's last moments. Photographs can tell all sorts of stories, from exciting to tragic. Join us for today's episode as we explore 3 haunting last photos linked to cold cases. Jared Negretti. This photograph would not be so eerie if it wasn't for the circumstances surrounding it. What might have once appeared as a playful selfie by a young child messing around with his camera takes on a more sinister look when you discover that the boy in the photo has been missing for 34 years. This photograph was recovered from the camera he left behind on the day of his disappearance. Jared Negretti was born on September 11th, 1978, to parents Philippe and Linda Negretti. He was living in El Monte, Los Angeles County at the time of his disappearance, and was last seen on July 19th, 1991 at around 6 p.m. He was on his first overnight backpacking trip with the Boy Scouts when he fell behind his fellow scouts as they climbed Mount San Gorgonio in California. The group was small, consisting of just 14 scouts and their leader, but the fact that Jared was struggling appeared to go unnoticed by the group. Another group of hikers spotted the boy lagging far behind and alerted the leader at the summit of the mountain, having told Jared as they passed him to stay on the trail. The scout leader stated that he'd collect Jared on their way back down, but by the time the scouts arrived, the 12-year-old was gone. The leader then accompanied the other children back to the camp before hiking 5 miles for help. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office responded to the scene, as did search and rescue teams, horseback riders, and helicopters equipped with infrared technology. As many as 3,000 people began combing through the wilderness around the mountain, looking for any sign of the young boy, but it wasn't until 3 days later that they managed to narrow down their search to a 6-square-mile area because they'd discovered a footprint they believed was a match to Jared. While searching around the footprint, they also came across food wrappers they believe had been dropped by the 12-year-old. Before long, they discovered his camera containing 12 photos. Most of the images were of the wilderness, but the final photo was the striking self-portrait. Some speculated that Jared had lost his camera while sliding down an area of the mountainside. By all accounts, it was believed that Jared would survive several days in the forest because the temperatures were warm, there was no extreme weather predicted, and there were plenty of bodies of water nearby, so he could refill his water bottle. However, no further signs of the missing 12-year-old were ever found. El Monte Police Chief Bill Anke helped organize the search for Jared in 1991. He recalled that there were lots of rumors about what had become of the 12-year-old, that he'd been attacked by a mountain lion or had been abducted by an opportunist. However, these theories have been discarded over the years. Jared has been missing for over 3 decades. He is described as a Hispanic male with brown eyes and black hair. At the time of his disappearance, on July 19, 1991, he was 5'2" and weighed 150 pounds. He wears glasses and has a small birthmark on his right cheek. Anyone with information about his disappearance can contact the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department at 909-387-3690. Kelly Cribbs. This image of a smiling young woman in an evening dress looks like any other photograph one might take on a night out. It's easy to look at it and think she's having an enjoyable evening with friends or family, and that she might look back on this image and remember the fun time she had. However, just weeks after this photograph was taken, the woman featured within it disappeared from her family home in Okinawa, Japan, leaving behind nothing but an eerie note and her wedding ring. Kelly Cribbs was a 27-year-old nursing assistant and mother of 2 when she vanished from Okinawa. Originally raised in a rural town in Georgia in the USA, Kelly moved to Okinawa in 2008 when her husband of 2 years, Vince Abad, a member of the US Air Force, was stationed there. The pair had 2 children, Vince and Cree, who were 22 months and 4 years old respectively at the time of the disappearance. By all accounts, Kelly was a loving, fulfilled, and happy young woman. Her half-sister, Jennifer Schumann, told Dateline that despite having a 14-year age gap, the siblings got on well. They would always attend family gatherings and spend time together, and they spoke on the phone regularly. Jennifer recalled, "She had a smile for everybody, even if she didn't feel like smiling." Kelly's mother echoed similar sentiments, stating that her daughter was an outgoing and generous individual. She was always very helpful and had a heart for working with children and the elderly. Following the 2008 move to Japan, she maintained regular contact with her loved ones back in the US, speaking with them frequently over video calls. On October 25, 2011, Kelly informed her family that her husband was being relocated again, this time to Alaska or Germany, and she mentioned looking forward to the move. She also asked her dad for advice because her car might need a new transmission, talked about whether her parents were visiting for Christmas, mentioned the military ball she'd recently attended, at which her final photograph was taken, and spoke about a doctor's appointment she had later in the day for a persistent sinus infection. The next day, on October 26th, Kelly picked up her children from school. The trio played together in the back garden before she took them to a church service at 7 p.m. Her husband, Vince, attended the service too, though he arrived separately. At 8:45 p.m., Kelly arrived home with the children and subsequently put them to bed. Vince later told his sister-in-law Jennifer that he had stayed behind longer to speak with the pastor. He arrived back from church at around 10 p.m., where he discovered his wife's car was missing. Inside the house, there was no sign of Kelly, just the children sleeping soundly in their beds. In the following hours, Vince called Kelly's family, informing them she was missing. Her mother, Janice, stated, "At first, I wanted to think she spent the night with one of her friends. However, she added that the situation was very bizarre because Kelly didn't like leaving her kids out of her sight. She wouldn't let them play in the yard without her and harbored a fear of losing them." In the following months, Kelly's family were in contact with Okinawa police and Kadena Air Force Base officials while her case was being investigated. Air Force officials told the family that Kelly was seen entering the base at around 8:37 p.m. on the night she disappeared. The vehicle then left at around 9:11 p.m., around which time her mobile phone was switched off. Kelly's car was traced the following morning at 4:20 a.m. near the cliffs at Cape Zanpa, a tourist attraction about 10 miles from the base, which housed popular running paths, a playground, petting zoo, and hotel. Her keys, phone, ID, and wedding ring had been left inside, as well as a note that simply read, "Love my kids, love my hubby and parents, bye." Vince later claimed that he and his wife had argued that night, and that she had threatened to take her own life. Kelly's family, however, were not convinced that the note was her doing. Janice told Dateline, "I saw a copy of the note. I was never convinced that the note was written that night." Jennifer added that Kelly never showed signs of depression or unhappiness, stating that the note was weird. Despite the note, Japanese authorities continued to investigate Kelly's case as that of a missing person. In the following weeks, her mother flew to Japan to try and find some answers for herself. She put up flyers, spoke with neighbors, and questioned police about their investigation. In 2014, she relentlessly pushed for answers, seeking to discover why authorities didn't carry out door-to-door inquiries, whether or not there was CCTV of Kelly driving her vehicle at the park where it was discovered, and demanded access to her phone call records. Despite filing multiple Freedom of Information Act requests, however, Janice was never able to get a hold of them. There haven't been many updates in the case since, but Kelly's body has never been recovered, and she is still considered a missing person. Her husband Vince was granted a divorce and remarried in 2014, several years after her disappearance. Meanwhile, Matt Burke, a reporter for the American military newspaper Stars and Stripes, who works at the paper's Okinawa office, stated that he has attempted to garner information on the case from Japanese authorities, but has been rejected every time, noting, "They said they couldn't do anything until she was declared deceased. They were protecting her privacy." Police have stated that the case is still open. In December of 2013, human remains were discovered in Okinawa. However, the remains were found to have not belonged to the mother of two. Jennifer and Janice are both desperate to bring Kelly home. Jennifer told Dateline, "I feel like we failed her in some way. I just want to find my sis so badly, or her body. It's a daily, agonizing loss." Kelly is described as being a white woman with blonde hair and green eyes. She is 5'11" and weighed around 116 pounds when she vanished. Anyone with information about her case can contact the Air Force Office of Special Investigations by texting the word AFOSI plus your tip information to 274637. Terry Pettit and Ronald Yakimchuk. This simple image of a couple in an old 1959 red Volkswagen with a spare tire tied to the roof seems innocuous and unassuming. In ordinary circumstances, it would be an exciting photograph of two people setting out on a new chapter of their lives. Instead, it is the final image of a couple who never made it to their destination. Just days after this image was taken, Terry Pettit and Ronald Yakimchuk disappeared, leaving behind a decades-old mystery. Teresa Terry Pettit was described by those who knew her as a tiny bundle of sass. She was one of the few women who'd elected to study engineering at the University of Alberta, Canada, and whiskey was her drink of choice. Intelligent and sociable, she met 23-year-old Ron Yakimchuk when she was just 18. 4 years later, the pair tied the knot. Terry completed only 1 year of her engineering degree before switching to the arts, but she ultimately dropped out of university and began working as a proofreader with the Edmonton Journal. Her partner, Ron, dedicated much of his free time to journalism and leftist politics, but was pursuing a teaching degree. Those who knew the couple described Ron as a break for some of Terry's wilder antics, like when she stole furniture from the university and Ron made her return it. In 1972, Ron was chosen by the staff of The Gateway, the university's student newspaper, to be its editor-in-chief, but the student council overturned the decision, feeling that the choice was trashy, irresponsible, too left. As a result, most of the paper's staff decided to start up an alternative student paper named Poundmaker. They began to publish it in the following months and rented a house near the campus, which served as both the newspaper's HQ and staff residence. Ron and Terry moved in, as did their friends Ross Harvey and Rod Mickelberg. In the months after that, Ron bought his car, the red Volkswagen Beetle, that would be immortalized in their final image. Afterwards, having completed his degree, Ron decided to hand over the reins of the newspaper to someone else so that he and Terry could start the next chapter of their lives. On June 1st, 1973, the couple packed up their belongings, stashing them in the back of the Volkswagen, tied a mattress to the roof, which they were dropping off to a friend on the way out of town, and climbed inside their vehicle, ready to head to the Maritimes, a region in East Canada. The drive there from Edmonton would be long, but the couple seemed to be looking forward to it. Friends joked that the car would never make it. Rod Mickelberg recalled, "I know it sounds ghoulish now. I made Ronald a bet for $50 that he wouldn't make it without a single repair job." In the following few days, Terry and Ron dropped off the mattress, visited relatives, and enjoyed the clear, bright weather as they made their way to the Maritimes. On June 12th, they reached Dryden, which was about halfway to Montreal, and the Volkswagen climbed the steep banks around Lake Superior. The last time anyone heard from the couple was when Terry sent a postcard reading, "Nya." She was telling Mickelberg that he was going to lose his $50 bet. Nobody heard a word from the couple again. On June 16th, 4 days after the postcard was sent, friends grew alarmed when they learned they hadn't showed up to a wedding they had planned to attend. One friend recalled, "Months passed, then we made some inquiries. It was a non-event at the time, but it kept getting more alarming." Another friend broke the rules and looked to see if the couple were employed and making unemployment insurance commission contributions. They were not. Terry's parents told the Edmonton Journal how they'd tried to report the couple missing, but because they were adults, the RCMP didn't take them seriously. Terry's father stated it was the first of the year before the police got anything going. By this time, thick snow covered the roads the couple had travelled, covering up any possible skid marks or signs that something had gone wrong, and many of the smaller lakes had frozen over. Little progress was made in the investigation in the following years. In 1980, a vehicle matching the description of their Volkswagen was discovered abandoned over 300 miles from Dryden, but it was determined to belong to someone else. With so little police attention, armchair sleuths and locals have made several suggestions of their own about what may have happened to Terry and Ron. The prevailing theory is that the couple plunged into a body of water and that their vehicle simply hasn't been found. They were possibly weighted down by their belongings and the fact that the engine was in the rear of the car. One woman, named Sigrid Thiessen, however, believes that a convicted killer was responsible for the disappearance, stating, "You could get rid of bodies fairly easily, and I think he, the killer, was in that part of the country at that point in time." The man she was referring to was convicted of 2 murders in the 1970s and travelled between Ontario and British Columbia on a regular basis at the time. Another theory emerged when a man contacted the Edmonton Journal, believing that he saw the couple's car while he was driving through northern Ontario. He believed his brother may have been linked to the case, but never had any proof. In November of 2009, another potential witness told the Edmonton Journal that she and her husband had seen multiple people crowded around a faded red Beetle with Alberta license plates in 1973. The car had broken down at the side of the road near the town of Parry Sound, Ontario. Though she had gone to the police in 1973, they had brushed her off. The case remains unsolved. Neither their bank accounts nor Ron's life insurance policy have ever been accessed, and the two have never been declared dead, as their families declined to file the appropriate paperwork. Terry is described as a white woman with short blonde hair and blue-green eyes. She is 5'4" and weighed around 120 pounds at the time of her disappearance. Her husband, Ron, is described as a white male with brown hair and brown eyes. He stands between 5'10" and 6 foot tall and weighed 150 pounds when he went missing. He has a faint scar over the bridge of his nose and a mole on his shoulder blade. Their car is described as a red 1959 Volkswagen Beetle with a green hood, green fender, and Alberta license plate CA3262. Only Terry had a passport at the time of the disappearance. If you have any information about their case, you can contact the Edmonton City Police at 780-423-4567. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.